A purebred horse protected abandoned puppies and transformed the heart of a cold businessman. In the luxurious stable, the majestic Andalusian welcomed 3 little dogs, defying his owner. Between storms and overcoming obstacles, man and animal discovered the true meaning of compassion. Prepare to be deeply moved by this incredible journey of redemption. Like this post and comment where you're watching from. The wind cut like a knife that March night when Thunder's whinnies tore through the silence of Cypress Creek Ranch. They weren't ordinary whinnies, the kind that announce hunger or thirst. They were urgent cries, loaded with an anguish that made the very air vibrate with tension. Something extraordinary was about to happen in that stable where luxury and coldness reigned absolute, and it would forever change the destiny of everyone involved. Richard Miller never imagined that his meticulously planned life would be turned upside down by 3 small, trembling, muddy creatures. At 45, he had built a business empire with the same surgical precision he applied to every aspect of his existence. Cypress Creek Ranch, with its 500 acres of lush green pasture and facilities that rivaled the best European stud farms, was the ultimate symbol of his success. There, between climate-controlled stalls and impeccable training tracks, Thunder reigned supreme as the most precious jewel in his collection. The black Andalusian was more than a competition horse. With his mane that rippled like liquid silk, in the wind and muscles that contracted and relaxed in a symphony of controlled power, he represented everything Richard valued: perfection, discipline, and measurable results. Every movement of the animal had been carefully cultivated through years of rigorous training. Each victory achieved was one more trophy on the already crowded shelf in the ranch's main office. But on that March night, when the rain fell like heavy curtains over the valley, something changed. The foreman, John Davis, a man of few words and much wisdom accumulated in his 60 years of life, found 3 abandoned puppies by the main gate. They were miserable creatures, only a few days old, their coats tangled with mud and their tiny bodies trembling violently under the lashing storm. Anyone with an ounce of compassion would have been moved by the scene, but John knew his boss well. Richard Miller tolerated no waste, and animals without pedigree or specific function were exactly that in his pragmatic view of the world. The answer came dry and definitive when John reported the find via the intercom from the main house. "Get rid of them," was all Richard said before hanging up. The foreman sighed deeply, looking at the 3 small beings huddled against each other for warmth. There was something profoundly wrong about abandoning such helpless creatures to their fate, but orders were orders, and he needed the job. It was when he was preparing a cardboard box to carry the puppies away from the property that Thunder began his symphony of protest. The horse, always so disciplined and contained, transformed into a force of nature. His hooves pounded against the stall door with an urgency John had never witnessed. The whinnies echoed through the empty stable, reverberating off the noble wood walls as if the building itself were alive and crying out for mercy. John approached cautiously, knowing the dangers of a 1,000-pound animal in a state of agitation. But what he saw when he got close to Thunder's stall left him paralyzed with astonishment. The horse had managed, somehow, to open the latch on his door. It wasn't a simple latch, the kind any clever animal could manipulate. It was an imported security system, designed specifically to contain large animals. And there was Thunder, standing majestically in the aisle, blocking John's path with his immense body. The Andalusian's eyes, normally as serene as deep lakes, burned with an almost human determination. John swallowed hard, the box with the puppies weighing like lead in his arms. He tried to go around the animal, but Thunder moved with the grace of a dancer, always keeping himself between the foreman and the exit. It was a silent standoff, a battle of wills between man and animal that stretched for long minutes under the incessant drumming of rain on the roof. It was then that one of the puppies, the smallest one, let out a weak whimper. The sound, almost inaudible amidst the storm, provoked an immediate reaction in Thunder. The horse lowered his head, his nostrils flaring as he sniffed the box. John, on an impulse he couldn't later explain, slowly knelt and placed the box on the ground. Thunder approached with infinite care, as if aware of his enormous strength compared to those fragile lives. What happened next would be forever etched in the old foreman's memory. Thunder, with a delicacy that contradicted his size, touched each puppy with his muzzle. Then, with precise movements, he began to gently nudge them towards his stall. The little dogs, still blind and disoriented, followed the warmth and smell of the large animal, dragging themselves painfully across the polished concrete floor. John watched, mesmerized, as Thunder created an improvised nest in the most protected corner of his stall. Using his muzzle and front hooves, the horse gathered all the available hay, forming a soft, warm bed. Then, with maternal care, he lay down in a way that created a protective barrier around the puppies. The small bodies immediately nestled against the horse's warm coat, their trembling gradually lessening as the heat enveloped them. The scene was so surreal, so contrary to everything John knew about equine behavior, that he stood still for long minutes, unable to process what he was witnessing. Horses didn't adopt puppies of other species. It was unnatural, impossible according to every veterinary manual he had ever read. And yet there was Thunder, the proud champion of countless competitions, transformed into an adoptive mother to 3 abandoned mutts. The dilemma before him was complex. John knew he should inform Richard immediately, but he also knew what his boss's reaction would be. The puppies would be forcibly removed, Thunder would become agitated, and the entire preparation schedule for the regional competition, set for 3 months from now, would go down the drain. On the other hand, hiding the situation was impossible. Richard made a point of personally supervising Thunder's progress, showing up at the stable at least 3 times a week. The decision was made for him when he saw one of the puppies, Indater, its clumsy newborn movements nestle even closer to Thunder's chest. The horse responded with a soft whinny, almost a whisper, as he adjusted his position to better accommodate his charges. John decided he would inform Richard in the morning. One night won't make a difference, he reasoned. Just one night for those little creatures to have a chance to survive the storm. Dawn arrived, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. The storm having dissipated during the night, John, who had slept in the stable to monitor the situation, woke to the sound of firm footsteps in the aisle. Richard Miller, impeccably dressed even at that early hour, walked towards Thunder's stall with his tablet in hand, likely checking the animal's performance data from recent training sessions. The foreman got up quickly, trying to intercept his boss before he discovered the scene himself. "Mr. Miller," he began, but Richard had already stopped in front of the stall, his face a mask of disbelief. For long seconds, the businessman remained motionless, processing the image before him. Thunder, his valuable $1 million investment, was sharing his space with 3 puppies of no discernible breed. John braced himself for the explosion of fury that would surely come. He knew Richard's temper well when he was thwarted, but what followed surprised him even more than the events of the previous night. Richard remained silent, his eyes scanning the scene with an indecipherable expression. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a forced neutrality that fooled no one. "How long have they been here?" he asked without taking his eyes off Thunder. John recounted the events of the previous night, including the horse's extraordinary behavior. Richard listened without interrupting, his tense jaw the only sign of his internal agitation. When the foreman finished, another long silence settled, broken only by the soft sound of Thunder's breathing and the small noises of the puppies stirring in their sleep. "It's temporary," Richard finally declared. "Just until the storm passes completely and we can find a suitable place for them. We can't risk disturbing Thunder before the competition." John nodded, recognizing the unexpected concession. But there was something in Richard's eyes, a flicker the foreman hadn't seen in years, that suggested this story was far from over. The following days brought a peculiar routine to Cypress Creek Ranch. Richard, who normally delegated all aspects of Thunder's daily care, began showing up at the stable at unusual hours, always with a ready excuse, of course. He needed to check the stall temperature, assess the hay quality, verify the animal's hydration levels. John watched with a discreet smile as the boss, pretending disinterest, always ended up stopping to observe the interaction between Thunder and the puppies. The little dogs grew quickly under the improbable care of their equine guardian. Thunder showed infinite patience with their growing antics. When they began to open their eyes and explore the stall with wobbly steps, the horse watched them attentively, occasionally using his muzzle to gently redirect them when they ventured too far. It was fascinating to observe how the animal had completely adjusted his routine to accommodate his small dependents. Marina Adams entered this story on a sunny April morning, when the flowering trees lining the ranch's driveway were in full bloom. An equine veterinarian, she had been called to perform Thunder's monthly checkup. Richard received her personally, something rare considering he normally left such interactions to John. What she didn't expect was to find the prize-winning Andalusian sharing his space with 3 playful puppies. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine astonishment. "In 20 years of practice, I've never seen anything like it." Richard, prepared to defend the temporary situation, was disarmed by the veterinarian's reaction of pure enchantment. Marina approached the stall with the care of someone entering sacred territory, her professional eyes assessing the unique dynamic before her. Thunder greeted her with a soft whinny, clearly recognizing her from previous visits. But when she made a move to enter the stall, the horse positioned himself protectively between her and the puppies. It wasn't a threat, just a clear warning that any approach needed his permission. Marina smiled, recognizing and respecting the animal's protective instinct. "They seem healthy," she observed after a careful visual examination. "But they'll need vaccinations soon. And of course, Thunder will need adjustments to his diet to compensate for the added stress of—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Adoptive fatherhood." Richard nodded, trying to maintain a professional expression as they discussed the medical details. But Marina noticed how his eyes kept drifting to the puppies, especially the smallest one, who had ventured to the stall bars and was observing the humans with childlike curiosity. It was during this visit that the first subtle turning point of the story occurred. Marina, while examining Thunder, commented casually on how some of the best competition horses she knew had unusual companions. "I knew a thoroughbred who wouldn't perform without his pet chicken nearby," she said, while checking the Andalusian's hooves, "and an Arabian mare who adopted an orphaned lamb. Sometimes these inexplicable bonds bring out the best in animals." Richard absorbed the information in silence, but something shifted in his posture. When Marina finished the examination and was preparing her notes, he asked a question that surprised him as much as it did her. "Hypothetically speaking, how long would puppies this age need special care before they could be relocated?" Marina studied him for a moment before answering. "Well, hypothetically, puppies this age need at least 8 weeks of consistent care before any significant change. Abrupt separations can cause lasting trauma." The seed was planted. Richard, a master of long-term business strategies, unconsciously began applying the same thinking to the situation in his stable. 8 weeks would take him dangerously close to the regional competition. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was possible to manage the situation to minimize disruptions. It was a logistical challenge, the kind of problem he was used to solving. The fact that he felt a strange reluctance to even consider separation was something he firmly ignored. Marina became a regular visitor in the following weeks. Officially, she was monitoring Thunder's health during this unusual period. Unofficially, she and Richard developed a routine of breakfast on the porch overlooking the pastures, where they talked about everything from equine training techniques to, surprisingly, their personal experiences. It was during one of these mornings, with the mist still dancing over the fields, that Marina shared the story that would change Richard's perspective. "I grew up on a ranch very much like this one," she began, her eyes lost in memories. "My father was like you, focused on success, profit, efficiency, until the day my younger brother brought home a dog that had been hit by a car. Dad was adamant we wouldn't have useless animals, but Billy, at 8 years old, stood at the front door with the dog in his arms and said that if the animal left, he would go with it." Richard listened in silence, something resonating deeply with the story. Marina continued. "Dad gave in grudgingly, but that dog, whom we named Hope, ended up saving our farm. One winter night he started barking desperately. We discovered that a short circuit had started a fire in the barn. Without hope, we would have lost the entire harvest." She paused, her eyes meeting Richard's. "Sometimes what seems useless is exactly what we need. We just don't know it yet." The second significant turning point happened on a hot April afternoon. Richard had canceled an important video conference to personally supervise the puppies' first bath. John had prepared a basin of warm water in the sunny courtyard, but no one had anticipated Thunder's reaction. When they tried to take the puppies out of the stall, the horse became extremely agitated, whinnying and pounding his hooves with increasing force. The situation quickly escalated. Thunder, in his anxiety, ended up knocking down the stall door in his attempt to follow the puppies. The crash echoed throughout the stable, startling the other horses and creating general pandemonium. It was only when Richard, on an impulse, suggested they bring Thunder along that the situation calmed down. The image of the majestic Andalusian supervising the bath of his charges, occasionally lowering his head to check if they were okay, became legendary among the ranch staff. The smallest of the puppies, the one who had shown a special connection with Thunder from the beginning, proved to be the most fragile of the trio. During a routine checkup, Marina discovered he had a heart murmur. "It's not necessarily fatal," she explained to a visibly shaken Richard, "but he'll need special care and regular medication." Cost wasn't the issue. Richard had more than enough resources. The problem was the emotional involvement he struggled to deny. It was John who, sensing his boss's internal struggle, suggested a name for the puppy. "Guardian," he said simply, "because even though he's the smallest, he's the one who guards Thunder's heart." Richard said nothing, but that night, when he thought he was alone, John saw him whispering the name as he carefully administered medication to the puppy. The second major obstacle arose with the arrival of Klaus Müller, the renowned German trainer Richard had hired months earlier to prepare Thunder for the competition. Klaus was a legend in the equestrian world, known for his rigorous methods and impeccable results. He was also completely inflexible in his methodologies. When he saw the dogs in Thunder's stall, his reaction was immediate and categorical. "This is unacceptable," he declared in his heavily accented English. "A competition horse needs total focus, absolute discipline. These animals are a distraction we cannot afford." Richard, used to being the one giving orders, found himself in the unusual position of having to negotiate. "Klaus, we need to consider Thunder's psychological well-being. He's formed a bond." "Bond?" Klaus practically spat the word. "Horses do not form bonds with dogs. This is anthropomorphism, human projection. In 40 years training champions, I have never seen such foolishness. Either the dogs go or I go." The ultimatum was given. Richard had invested a small fortune to bring Klaus from the other side of the world. The man's reputation was impeccable, his methods proven. The decision should have been simple. Marina was present during this confrontation, having arrived for a routine visit. She observed the conflict in Richard, the battle between the pragmatic businessman and something new that was emerging. It was when Guardian, the small puppy with the heart murmur, stumbled to the stall bars and let out a weak but determined bark, as if defending his right to be there, that something definitively changed in Richard's expression. "Mr. Müller," he said with a calm that Marina recognized as dangerous, "I appreciate your services up to this point. My assistant will contact you regarding payment details and your flight back." Klaus turned pale. "You are making a terrible mistake. Without me, Thunder has no chance in the competition." Richard allowed himself a small smile. "Perhaps, but some things are more important than victories." After Klaus's stormy departure, Richard found himself facing a practical dilemma. The competition was approaching, and he had just dismissed one of the best trainers in the world. It was Marina who hesitantly made a suggestion. "I know someone. She's not famous like Klaus, but she has a different approach. Anna Lewis. She works with equine therapy but also prepares horses for local competitions. Her methodology is based on partnership, not domination." The third turning point came with Anna Lewis's arrival. A woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, and eyes that seemed to see through people. She studied the unique situation in the stable with genuine interest. "Fascinating," was her first comment upon observing Thunder with the puppies. "I've seen interspecies bonds, but this is special." Anna Lewis proposed something revolutionary, integrating the puppies, especially Guardian, into the training regimen. Thunder is calmer when they're around? Then, let's use that to our advantage. We can create a protocol where Guardian accompanies certain exercises, not as a distraction, but as an emotional anchor. Klaus would have had an apoplectic fit at the suggestion, but Richard, influenced by weeks of observation and conversations, with Marina decided to take the risk. The new training regimen was unlike anything Cypress Creek Ranch had ever seen. Guardian, wearing a small colored collar for easy identification, accompanied Thunder during warm-ups. The other two puppies watched from a safe area, their presence providing additional comfort to the horse. To everyone's surprise, except perhaps Anna Lewis, Thunder's performance improved significantly. "The horse is happy," Anna Lewis explained one afternoon while they watched Thunder execute a perfect series of movements. "And a happy animal performs better than a stressed animal, no matter how well trained. It's basic biology, something many traditional trainers forget in their pursuit of technical perfection." Richard absorbed every word, his perspective on training, and perhaps on life gradually shifting. It was during this period of transformation that the relationship between Richard and Marina deepened in unexpected ways. What had begun as professional conversations about Thunder's health had evolved into prolonged breakfasts, walks through the fields at dusk, and occasional dinners on the porch of the main house. Marina had a gift for making him laugh, something Richard hadn't genuinely done in years. The first crucial moment of romantic closeness happened one night when Guardian had a crisis related to his heart problem. Marina arrived quickly after Richard's desperate call, finding him in the stall, holding the small puppy while Thunder watched anxiously. Together, they worked for hours to stabilize the little dog, their hands occasionally touching as they shared the care. When Guardian was finally out of danger, sleeping peacefully nestled against Thunder, Richard and Marina found themselves sitting side by side in the hay, exhausted but relieved. "I couldn't lose him," Richard confessed, his voice hoarse with emotion. "This little one, he changed everything." Marina took his hand, a simple gesture but loaded with meaning. "He didn't change everything, Richard. He just revealed who you always were beneath all that armor." The second significant moment came when Marina gifted Richard an old book about the connection between humans and animals. "It belonged to my grandfather," she explained. "He always said animals are mirrors of our soul. If we let them, they show us who we truly are." Richard kept the book like a treasure, reading it on quiet nights while observing Thunder and his charges. The fourth turning point happened when a severe May storm caused significant damage in the region. The river that cut through the property, normally a gentle stream, turned into a furious torrent. The waters rose rapidly, threatening the lower facilities of the ranch. Richard personally coordinated evacuation efforts, moving horses and equipment to higher ground. It was in the middle of the chaos that they realized Guardian had disappeared. The small puppy, curious as ever, must have ventured out during the confusion. Thunder was inconsolable, whinnying desperately and trying to break out of his temporary confinement. Marina and John searched frantically, but it was Richard who, guided by Thunder's whinnies, realized where the puppy might be. The old barn, a structure they planned to demolish, was on the lowest part of the property. Richard ran there, ignoring John's shouts of warning about the danger. He found Guardian trapped under fallen beams, the water rising rapidly around him. Without hesitation, Richard entered the flooded structure, fighting against the current. Debris. The moment of greatest tension came when, after managing to free Guardian, Richard realized the exit was blocked. The water was rising inexorably, and the puppy, already weak due to his heart problem, could barely keep his head above the surface. Richard held him against his chest, desperately searching for an escape route while the structure groaned ominously around them. It was then that the impossible happened. Thunder, having broken through his temporary enclosure with superhuman or rather super equine strength, appeared at the destroyed entrance of the barn. The horse, defying his own instincts of self-preservation, entered the turbulent water. With impressive intelligence, he used his massive body to create a barrier against the current, allowing Richard, still carrying Guardian, to find a way to safety. The dramatic rescue had witnesses. John, Marina, and several employees watched in astonishment as horse and man worked in perfect synchronicity to save the small puppy. When they finally reached safe ground, Richard fell to his knees, still clutching Guardian to his chest while Thunder circled them protectively. It was a moment of raw truth, where all masks fell and the real Richard emerged. Marina was the first to reach them, wrapping both man and puppy in her embrace. Tears streamed freely down Richard's face, something none of his employees had ever witnessed. "I almost lost him," he repeated, his voice broken. "I almost lost my little Guardian." Marina held his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "But you didn't lose him. You risked everything to save him. That is love, Richard, pure and simple love." Guardian's recovery was slow but steady. The small puppy showed a resilience that surprised even Marina. During the days he spent under intensive care, Thunder refused to leave the stable area where the little dog was being treated. Richard set up a makeshift office right there, conducting his business while watching over the recovery. It was during this period that the third significant romantic moment occurred. On a particularly difficult night, when Guardian had a relapse, Marina stayed by Richard's side throughout the vigil. Around 3 in the morning, exhausted and emotionally drained, they found themselves leaning against each other, watching the moon rise through the stable window. "I don't know how to thank you," Richard murmured. Marina turned to face him, their faces inches apart. "You don't need to thank me. I'm here because I want to be. Because—" She hesitated, then continued bravely. "Because I care about you, all of you." The kiss that followed was soft, hesitant, as if both were afraid of breaking the moment. But it was also a promise, a recognition that something deep had grown between them. The fifth turning point came with an unexpected proposal. Carlos Rodriguez, a wealthy rival businessman of Richard's, showed up at the ranch with an offer. He had heard about Thunder and his impressive performance in recent training sessions. He offered an astronomical sum for the horse, enough to buy 3 champion animals. "It's a good deal," Rodriguez insisted. "With that money you can buy proven champions, without the current complications." The Richard of 6 months ago would have seriously considered the offer. He would have calculated the pros and cons, analyzed the return on investment. But the man who now stood before Rodriguez was different. "Thunder is not for sale," he replied simply. Rodriguez insisted, increasing the offer. Richard remained firm. "Some things, Mr. Rodriguez, are priceless. Family is one of them." Rodriguez's departure, Richard found Marina in the rose garden she had started cultivating near the house. She watched him approach, noting the new lightness in his step. He refused the offer. He didn't need to ask to know. Richard sat beside her on the wooden bench, the scent of roses surrounding them. "You know, a few months ago I would have accepted without blinking. What changed?" Richard considered the question, watching Thunder in the distant pasture, with the 3 dogs now grown playing around him. "I changed, or rather I rediscovered myself. I spent so much time building walls, focusing only on material success, that I forgot what really matters. Thunder and the puppies, especially Guardian, taught me about unconditional love. You taught me about true partnership. John showed me wisdom and simplicity. I had everything, but I had nothing. Now finally, I have what matters." The fourth crucial romantic moment happened when Marina shared her own vulnerability. On a quiet afternoon while preparing the animals for training, she revealed why she had moved to the area. "I ran away," she confessed, "from a relationship that diminished me, from a life that wasn't mine. I came here to rebuild myself, piece by piece." Richard listened in silence, his hand finding hers in silent support. "I'm afraid," she continued, "of losing myself again in someone, of stopping being myself for love." Richard squeezed her hand gently. I don't want a different Marina. I want the strong, independent, and compassionate woman who transformed my life. I want to be your partner, not your owner. We learn together. We grow together, but always as complete individuals. It was a promise and a declaration, solidifying the foundation of their relationship. The sixth turning point happened just 2 weeks before the competition. During a routine training session, Thunder suffered a tendon injury. It's not serious, Marina assured after the examination, but he'll need absolute rest for at least 10 days. This meant they would only have a few days for final preparation before the competition. Anna Lewis was honest in her assessment. The chances of winning had drastically decreased. Richard surprised everyone with his reaction. Instead of frustration or disappointment, he showed only concern for Thunder's well-being. His health is more important than any trophy, he declared. If we're not ready, we won't compete. It was John who suggested an alternative approach. During the years he had worked on other ranches, he had seen horses recover more quickly when kept in comforting company. Thus began a unique recovery regimen. Guardian became Thunder's official nurse, spending hours lying beside the horse as he rested. The other 2 dogs also contributed, creating an atmosphere of calm and support that seemed to accelerate healing. Marina monitored the progress daily, marveling at the healing power of emotional connection. It was during this period of forced recovery that Richard made a discovery about himself. One morning, he found himself genuinely happy just observing his animals interacting peacefully. There were no spreadsheets to analyze, calls to take, deals to close. Just the present moment, rich in its simplicity. The ambition that had driven him for decades was still there, but now tempered by something deeper. Marina found him in this contemplation, sitting silently beside him. After a while, she spoke softly. You know what I see when I look at you. Now, I see a complete man. Not perfect, but complete. Richard smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his features. It's strange. I spent my whole life chasing perfection, only to discover that what I really needed was completeness. The 7th turning point came with Thunder's miraculous recovery. Just 3 days before the competition, the horse showed himself to be completely healed, his gait firm and confident. Anna Lewis attributed the rapid recovery to the supportive emotional environment, but also to the fact that Thunder had something to fight for beyond himself. He wants to compete, she observed. Not for the win, but to show what his family is capable of. The final preparations were intense but joyful. The entire ranch mobilized, from the most humble workers to suppliers and friends. Richard's transformation had touched many lives, and everyone wanted to contribute to this moment. Guardian received a small uniform matching Thunder's competition colors, his role as official mascot, now recognized by everyone. On the eve of the competition, Richard organized a dinner for everyone involved in the journey. Under the stars, with a table set in the garden and delicate lights strung between the trees, he gave a speech that would be etched in the memory of all present. 6 months ago, I measured success in numbers, wins, profits. Today, looking at all of you, at Thunder and our 3 little miracles, I understand that true success is in the connections we make, the love we share, the difference we make in each other's lives. The 5th and most significant romantic moment happened after dinner. Richard and Marina walked through the moonlit fields when he stopped abruptly. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside, there wasn't a ring but a key. Marina looked confused until Richard explained. It's the key to the new veterinary clinic I'm building on the property. Your dream of having a rehabilitation center for injured or abandoned animals. If you want it, of course. If you want to build that dream with me. Marina was speechless, tears glistening in her eyes. You did this for me? Richard shook his head. I did it for us. For all the animals who need what Thunder gave the puppies, a chance. For all the cold businessmen who need what you gave me, a heart. It's my way of ensuring our story continues to repeat itself in different ways for many years to come. The kiss that sealed this moment was different from the previous ones, loaded with future promises and mutual commitment. The day of the competition dawned clear and bright. The Cypress Creek Ranch entourage was unusual to say the least. In addition to the standard team, 3 dogs wearing official vests accompanied the group. Guardian, in particular, carried himself with a dignity befitting his name. The other teams watched with a mixture of amusement and skepticism at this unconventional entry. Klaus Mueller was present, preparing another competitor. His disdain was palpable when he crossed paths with Richard. "You threw away a sure win for cheap sentimentality," he commented acidly. Richard, the old Richard, would have responded with equal venom. Instead, he just smiled. "Perhaps, Klaus, but I gained something much more valuable." The German trainer walked away, huffing, unable to comprehend the transformation he was witnessing. Thunder's performance was preceded by a moment of tension. Minutes before entering the arena, Guardian had a small episode related to his heart problem. Marina acted quickly, stabilizing him, but the incident shook Richard. "We can withdraw," Anna Lewis offered. "No one would judge." But it was Guardian himself, recovering with his characteristic resilience and barking energetically, who seemed to provide the answer. The family competed together or not at all. When Thunder entered the arena, something magical happened. The horse, perhaps sensing the importance of the moment, rose to a level of performance that surprised even Anna Lewis. Every movement was executed with precision and grace, but more than that, with a palpable joy that captivated the audience. Guardian, strategically positioned where Thunder could see him, remained alert and proud, as if he understood his crucial role. The final event, the big challenge that would decide the winners, required not only technical skill, but also the deep connection between horse and rider. Richard, who had spent the last few months learning true partnership with Thunder, guided the animal not with authoritarian commands, but with mutual trust. Every jump, every change of direction, flowed like a dance perfectly choreographed by life. The moment of truth came at the final jump, the highest and most challenging. For an instant, time seemed to stop. Richard could hear his heart beating. He could feel Thunder gathering every ounce of strength. And then, in a movement that seemed to defy gravity, they flew. The landing was perfect. The crowd erupted in applause, but for Richard, the only sound that mattered was Guardian's joyful bark. The 8th turning point came with the announcement of the results. Against all odds, Thunder and Richard had taken first place. But the real victory came afterward, during the award ceremony. Richard, holding the trophy, did something unprecedented. He called his entire team to the podium: John, Anna Lewis, Marina, and yes, the 3 dogs. "This trophy belongs to all of us," he declared. "It is the symbol of what we can achieve when we choose love over profit, family over fame." The story could have ended there, in a perfect moment of triumph. But life, as Richard had learned, was richer than any fairy tale ending. In the following weeks, Cypress Creek Ranch underwent an even deeper transformation. Inspired by the story of Thunder and the puppies, people began bringing abandoned, injured, or rejected animals. What had begun as an isolated incident on a stormy night was becoming a movement. Marina took charge of the new rehabilitation center, bringing her expertise and passion to create a sanctuary where second chances were the norm, not the exception. Richard, far from neglecting his business, discovered that his personal transformation had, paradoxically, improved his business performance. He now led with empathy and vision, inspiring loyalty and dedication in his employees. John, the wise foreman whose act of compassion on that fateful night had started the whole journey, became the official mentor for young people who came to learn about animal care at the ranch. His simple philosophy, that every living being deserves dignity and love, permeated every aspect of the educational program they developed. The 9th turning point happened 6 months after the competition. Guardian, defying all medical prognoses about his heart condition, not only survived but thrived. During a routine checkup, the specialist veterinarian brought in by Marina was astonished. The murmur had significantly decreased. "I can't explain it scientifically," he admitted, "but this dog has a will to live that defies medical logic." It was also during this period that Richard made a discovery about his own family history. Going through old documents in the attic of the main house, he found letters from his grandfather, a man he had barely known. The letters revealed that his grandfather had been a great advocate for animal rights in his time, fighting against cruel practices and promoting ethical treatment. One letter in particular resonated deeply. The true measure of a man is not in what he gains for himself, but in what he does for those who cannot repay him. This discovery led Richard to establish the Hope Foundation, named in honor of both the dog from Marina's story and the feeling that now guided his actions. The foundation not only maintained the sanctuary at the ranch but expanded the work to other regions, creating a support network for animals in vulnerable situations. The Foundation's work brought unexpected challenges. Not everyone approved of the ranch's transformation. Some neighbors complained about the increased activity. Others questioned the impact on property values. The biggest challenge came when a group of investors, led by Rodriguez, tried to use legal loopholes to force the sanctuary's closure. It was a battle that tested the determination of everyone involved. The 10th and biggest turning point happened during the court hearing that would decide the sanctuary's future. The room was packed, divided between supporters and opponents. Rodriguez and his lawyers presented arguments about zoning, economic impact, legal precedents. It seemed the cold logic of business would prevail once again. It was then that something extraordinary happened. One by one, beneficiaries of the sanctuary's work began to stand up and share their stories. Children who had found solace and healing through interaction with the rescued animals. Veterans dealing with trauma who discovered peace in the ranch fields. Lonely seniors who had found purpose and community as volunteers. Each story was a testament to the transformative power of compassion. The decisive moment came when an 8-year-old girl, Maria Sanchez, asked to speak. She had been mute due to trauma until she began interacting with Guardian during therapy visits. With a clear, strong voice, she said, "Guardian taught me that even broken hearts can keep beating strong. If they close this place, where will other kids like me find their voice?" The judge, visibly moved, made an unprecedented decision. He not only allowed the sanctuary to continue, but recommended it as a model for similar initiatives. The victory was more than legal. It was moral, proving that the transformation initiated by Thunder and 3 abandoned puppies had created waves of change that reached far beyond the ranch's boundaries. With the legal battle won, Richard and Marina finally set their wedding date. The ceremony, held under the flowering trees where it had all begun, was simple but deeply meaningful. Thunder served as a symbolic best man, the 3 dogs as ring bearers. John officiated the ceremony with words that captured the essence of the entire journey. Love knows no species, respects no odds, bows to no logic. Love simply is, and in being, it transforms everything it touches. Guardian, now a small but determined adult dog, carried the rings in a tiny pouch attached to his collar. When it came time for the vows, Richard spoke from the heart. "Marina, you and our improbable 4-legged teachers have shown me that strength is not in building walls, but in tearing them down. I promise to keep learning, growing, loving, not despite the difficulties, but through them." Marina responded with equal emotion. "Richard, I've seen you reborn, like a phoenix from the ashes of your old life. I promise to walk by your side, not behind or ahead as we continue writing this improbable story of love and transformation. May each dawn find us wiser, kinder, more connected to everything that lives." The kiss that sealed the union was accompanied by a peculiar chorus. Thunder's joyful whinny, the enthusiastic barks of the 3 dogs, and the applause of an entire community that had witnessed and been transformed by this story of love beyond conventions. Life at Cypress Creek Ranch continued to evolve. The rehabilitation center expanded, now including educational programs, animal-assisted therapy, and research on interspecies bonds. Guardian, defying all medical expectations about his heart condition, not only survived but thrived. During a routine checkup, the specialist veterinarian brought in by Marina was astonished. The murmur had significantly decreased. "I can't explain it scientifically," he admitted, "but this dog has a will to live that defies medical logic." It was also during this period that Richard made a discovery about his own family history. Going through old documents in the attic of the main house, he found letters from his grandfather, a man he had barely known. The letters revealed that his grandfather had been a great advocate for animal rights in his time, fighting against cruel practices and promoting ethical treatment. One letter in particular resonated deeply. "The true measure of a man is not in what he gains for himself, but in what he does for those who cannot repay him." This discovery led Richard to establish the Hope Foundation, named in honor of both the dog from Marina's story and the feeling that now guided his actions. The foundation not only maintained the sanctuary at the ranch, but expanded the work to other regions, creating a support network for animals in vulnerable situations. The UC Foundation's work brought unexpected challenges. Not everyone approved of the ranch's transformation. Some neighbors complained about the increased activity. Others questioned the impact on property values. The biggest challenge came when a group of investors, led by Rodriguez, tried to use legal loopholes to force the sanctuary's closure. It was a battle that tested the determination of everyone involved. The 10th and biggest turning point happened during the court hearing that would decide the sanctuary's future. The room was packed, divided between supporters and opponents. Rodriguez and his lawyers presented arguments about zoning, economic impact, legal precedents. It seemed the cold logic of business would prevail once again. It was then that something extraordinary happened. One by one, beneficiaries of the sanctuary's work began to stand up and share their stories. Children who had found solace and healing through interaction with the rescued animals. Veterans dealing with trauma who discovered peace in the ranch fields. Lonely seniors who had found purpose and community as volunteers. Each story was a testament to the transformative power of compassion. The decisive moment came when an 8-year-old girl, Maria Sanchez, asked to speak. She had been mute due to trauma, until she began interacting with Guardian during therapy visits. With a clear, strong voice, she said, "Guardian taught me that even broken hearts can keep beating strong. If they close this place, where will other kids like me find their voice?" The judge, visibly moved, made an unprecedented decision. He not only allowed the sanctuary to continue, but recommended it as a model for similar initiatives. The victory was more than legal, it was moral, proving that the transformation initiated by Thunder and 3 abandoned puppies had created waves of change that reached far beyond the ranch's boundaries. With the legal battle won, Richard and Marina finally set their wedding date. The ceremony, held under the flowering trees where it had all begun, was simple but deeply meaningful. Thunder served as a symbolic best man, the 3 dogs as ring-bearers. John officiated the ceremony with words that captured the essence of the entire journey. "Love knows no species, respects no odds, bows to no logic. Love simply is, and in being, it transforms everything it touches." Guardian, now a small but determined adult dog, carried the rings in a tiny pouch attached to his collar. When it came time for the vows, Richard spoke from the heart. "Marina, you and our improbable 4-legged teachers have shown me that strength is not in building walls, but in tearing them down. I promise to keep learning, growing, loving, not despite the difficulties, but through them." Marina responded with equal emotion. "Richard, I've seen you reborn, like a phoenix from the ashes of your old life. I promise to walk by your side, not behind or ahead, as we continue writing this improbable story of love and transformation. May each dawn find us wiser, kinder, more connected to everything that lives." The kiss that sealed the union was accompanied by a peculiar chorus. Thunder's joyful whinny, the enthusiastic barks of the 3 dogs, and the applause of an entire community that had witnessed and been transformed by this story of love beyond conventions. Life at Cypress Creek Ranch continued to evolve. The rehabilitation center expanded, now including educational programs, animal-assisted therapy, and research on interspecies bonds. Guardian, defying all medical expectations about his heart condition, became the main therapy dog, his own story of overcoming inspiring others not to give up in the face of bleak diagnoses. Thunder continued competing, but now victories were secondary to the greater purpose. Each competition was an opportunity to share the message that excellence and compassion were not mutually exclusive. Anna Lewis developed a revolutionary training method based on the lessons learned, attracting students from around the world interested in this holistic approach. Years passed. The ranch became a landmark, a living testament that change was possible at any stage of life. Richard, now with graying hair but eyes that sparkled with renewed purpose, often sat on the same bench where it had all begun, observing the legacy in motion around him. On one particular afternoon, with the sun setting in golden hues over the fields, he was joined by an unexpected visitor. Klaus Müller, the trainer who had left in disdain years ago, appeared humbly at the gate. "I came to apologize," he said simply, "and perhaps to learn. I want to change too." Richard extended his hand in welcome, because he had learned that transformation, like love, knew no bounds. The story of Thunder and the three puppies became a local legend, then a national one, inspiring countless other stories of compassion and change. But for those who lived on the ranch, it was simply daily life, where each dawn brought new opportunities to make a difference. One animal, one person, one moment at a time. Guardian, now elderly but still vibrant, continued his daily vigil beside Thunder. The two had grown old together, their improbable friendship remaining as strong as it was on that first stormy night. Sometimes on quiet mornings, you could see them side by side, the large horse and the small dog, watching the sunrise like old friends who had shared a lifetime of adventures. Marina and Richard had children, 2 boys and a girl, who grew up understanding that family wasn't defined by species or blood, but by love and commitment. The children learned responsibility caring for the animals, compassion witnessing rescues and rehabilitations, and resilience observing injured creatures find the strength to continue. The Hope Foundation expanded internationally, bringing the Cypress Creek Ranch model to underserved communities around the world. Each new center carried the same philosophy. Every living being deserves a second chance, and sometimes, in giving that chance, it is us who receive the true gift of transformation. The epilogue of this story is still being written, because as long as there are animals needing help, people needing healing, and hearts needing connection, the legacy of a stormy night will continue to spread. Like ripples on a pond after a stone is thrown, each act of compassion creates ever-widening circles of change. And so, dear viewer who has followed this journey, I leave you with a question that resonates across time and species. At what moment will you allow love, in its most unexpected and improbable forms, to transform your own life? When will you open the doors of your personal, stable to welcome the impossible, the inconvenient, the transformative? The answer, as Thunder and Three Little Puppies taught us, can change not just your life, but the world around you, one gesture of compassion at a time.